What advice would you give to somebody around how clinical trials have helped you?
Well, what I would say is, obviously, I'm living proof that it's worked for me. But what I would add to that is that patients now are key to the world of medication, okay? And when I say that, I mean health professionals and patients are now working much more together.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of On the Sofa. You should know who I am by now, but just in case, my name is Rachel Onikosi and I'm here with a great guest today. Well, actually, all my guests are great, but this is a special guest. Can I introduce you to Alfred?
Good afternoon to everybody.
Excellent. How are you, Alfred?
I'm wonderful. I really am.
Good.
Really
I'm glad. Why don't you introduce yourself to the viewers and tell them what you do and what you're about and actually why you've come to On the Sofa today?
As you said, the name is Alfred Samuels. I'm a patient advocate. I'm also a 10-year survivor of advanced metastatic prostate cancer, stage 4. Basically, this year, as I've said, marks 10 years of extended life. And it's been a journey. It's been an epic journey. Prostate cancer is something that affects 1 in 4 black men in the United Kingdom. It affects 1 in 8 Caucasian men and 1 in 13 Asian men. So you can understand it's a disease that is at the core of family life, so to speak. I say it affects men, but it also affects their partners, loved ones. And really, it's about understanding that if you get to what I'm trying to say to you is this: prostate cancer is curable if found early enough. And you need to find it early enough. In fact, any cancer, really, if you find it early enough, you stand a good chance of being cured and hopefully moving on with your life. I wasn't so fortunate. In January 2012, I was diagnosed, and I have to tell you, it was a shock. It really was a shock to me. It was a shock to my family. And the worst thing was that the doctor simply said, think short term rather than long term. So with that, I started to prepare for the worst scenario. Well, fortunately, I have a wonderful wife.
Of course. And because I met her, yes.
She is phenomenal.
Good.
And she is the one that really started the ball rolling in the right direction. You see, I'd already given up. I really had given up. But she hadn't. She started to research, investigate, and eventually found that there were clinical trials available. And really, I had nothing to lose by going on to a clinical trial.
Yeah. Can I come in there, just before we go in to talk about the clinical trials, can I take you back to January 2012 when you were first diagnosed? What I would like to know is, what were you going through at the time you were told? What were your feelings and emotions?
Well, basically, prior to 2012, in the summer of 2011, I was keeping fit and I used to jog a lot. Maybe I'll take you back a little bit further. My background is in the security industry. I was involved in the protection of entertainment artists for 30 years.
So close protection.
Close protection is the operative word.
Yeah.
And I toured the world with many of the A-list artists.
Yes, give me some names.
Beyonce.
Yes.
Sade, Bob Dylan.
Wow.
Seal, Spandau Ballet, Mel and Kim.
Yeah.
Oh dear, the list goes on. There were many.
Excellent,
Rod Stewart. I worked with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just that I was there sitting by a door doing something or the other. I travelled. I was responsible. I was the head of security in most places. Or I worked as part of a team that secured a client wherever they were. I also got involved in the training. I was one of the first companies that offered training before it became mandatory.
Before you had to get your
license,
security industry authority
SIA,
license?
correct.
Absolutely, yes.
Before that even was formed, we were carrying out training courses.
Yeah. Can I quickly just say, in 2000 actually, I went for a 2 days training to become a door security guard, a door supervisor.
That's right.
I remember I did that somewhere in Finsbury Park. You then got this little license that you carried around.
Correct.
And that allowed me to then go and do all this door security around all those kind of garage rays, twice as nice and all of that stuff. So I understand the industry, yes. Yeah,
so,
I was a bit bigger then, a bit more chunkier, ready for the world, and a bit more tinier now, but yes, go on.
So really, that was my background. The guys in Jamaica nicknamed me Skyman because I lived in the sky. I was always flying here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
So really, I was busy looking after other people. Unfortunately, I didn't look after myself well enough. And the signs and the symptoms were there, and I ignored them because I put them down to lifestyle. Living in, 5-star hotels, food that's not nutritious, etc., etc., etc. All of these things just put my mind in a different direction.
Yeah.
It wasn't until a pain in my mid to lower back hit me whilst jogging, caused me to wince, stop me dead in my tracks. I decided maybe I've overtrained. Anyway, cut a long story short, over the next few months, I tried to get my doctor to, in fact, take a step back. Early hours of one particular morning, 1 o'clock in the morning, most excruciating pain hit me.
Yeah.
I ended up in A&E. They thought it was sciatica. It wasn't, but they weren't to know until an MRI scan was done. I spent a couple of months trying to get the scan done because my doctor was messing me about. Eventually, with my wife's insistence, I was told to go and get a scan done.
Yeah.
Don't come back in this house until you get that letter from the doctor.
Absolutely agree with that.
And it
You had no choice, did you?
I had no choice.
No say in the matter.
Trust me.
Yes.
But it saved my bacon. It saved my life.
Good, I'm so glad.
Because I went, got the letter, got referred, had the scan, should have realised something was wrong whilst I was being scanned, because the radiologist came to me and said, "Have you been drinking something dark?" Clearly, what he had seen was the spread of the cancer in my body.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
That's what he'd seen, but I said, well, no, I didn't think anything of it.
And were you feeling pain around that particular area in your body?
I wasn't, well, the only things were I was urinating often.
Right.
And I mean urinating often.
More often than you were
than
drinking?
usual.
Yeah.
Okay? There was blood in my stool.
Right.
But I put that down again to lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
At times there was a need to urgently rush to the toilet. See, all of these were signs, and I ignored them. Well, eventually, January the 26th, 2012, I went to see my doctor for the results. I walked into the room, and I knew something was wrong. Usually he greets you in a certain way, but what he was doing was looking at the screen at something in front of him, which I couldn't see. He said, come on in. And I just felt something was wrong.
Were you with your wife at the time?
No, I wasn't. So I went there on my own.
Alone?
Okay, because I wasn't expecting that type of news.
Yes, okay.
So I just thought, sciatica, you know, that is what I was expecting. With that, then he asked me a few questions, because what he was trying to do was to see if there was any other reason why I was going through the pain I was going through.
Yes.
But the information was in front of me already. And he just looked at me and he said, I'm sorry to tell you, Mr. Samuels, it's cancer. I sat there, literally as I'm sitting here now, and my head just went, and the first thought was, why me?
Why me? Yeah.
Why me? And I sat there, I was stunned for a few minutes, and eventually I came back to my senses, and he said to me, we need to get you looked at ASAP. But when I took a check and looked at him properly, he had tears in his eyes.
Oh, that's so sad.
Sad, but also something that really tells you, hang on, this is maybe more serious than what he's saying. And of course I'm thinking, oh no. And with that, he then said that we need to get you sorted. He wrote up some papers. I left his surgery, and I remember walking out the surgery, and it was as if somebody was walking next to me. A spiritual...
You felt a presence, didn't you?
A spiritual presence. Believe me.
Yeah.
That's what I felt next to me. And I thought... And I just walked down the road, and my head was just held high. And in my head was chewing over, I've got to tell this person, I've got to tell that person, this, that. But I wasn't crying. I wasn't crying. So anyway, with that now, I now have to tell the family. But first of all, I need to tell my wife.
Yeah.
And that was hard, because when I did, it was tears galore on the phone.
Absolutely. So you've left the surgery, you're walking along about your business, you feel a presence, you're still a bit confused and muddled about what you've just heard.
Yep.
At what point do you phone your wife? How long after
Within
the surgery?
Probably 45 minutes, an hour later, I've got to tell her as soon as possible. So I get on the phone to her, I let her know. She was upset, let's put it that way. I then have to tell the rest of the family.
And who are they?
I had to tell my brother first. I told my eldest daughter, but I couldn't get the words out. My brother actually, three of us sat in a room, and my brother actually had to say it. Your dad's got cancer. And then I had to tell my other daughter, and I remember every single conversation, every single interaction, right? And I remember my daughter, my eldest daughter Selena, being told, but she was strong. I could just remember how she took it. My other daughter, LaJade, was kind of sitting across the sofa to me. I was sitting this side, and she came into the room bubbly, and that's how she was, bubbly. Hi, Daddy. Blah, 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 blah. She sat down, and then I had to tell her.
Yeah. How old were your children at the time, and did they live in the same house as you?
No. Right. My
Right.
children were elsewhere.
Yeah.
And then obviously my eldest daughter, she's now 41.
Yes.
So she's a big old lady. And then LeJade is in their 30s.
Okay.
And then my other daughter, Kira, and my son, Nathan, they live in Birmingham.
Right.
So, of course, I had to get on the phone to them and tell them. And it just wasn't good. It just wasn't good the way they all reacted. And rightly so.
Yeah.
So
and the reaction was surprise, shock, stunned,
shocked,
sadness, I can imagine.
Sadness, all of those things. But as I said to them all, I'm going to fight it.
Of course.
Don't worry yourself, right? And it's not going to be easy. I'm going to fight it. And within months, I found myself on a clinical trial.
Yep.
And the clinical trial was called the Stampede Clinical Trial. And my presenting PSA was 509. Now to equate that.
What is PSA? Sorry.
Prostate specific antigen, okay? And it's a means by which they test a man's prostate to see what is going on.
Yeah.
So with that now, every man has a prostate. Women don't have a prostate.
Yeah.
So you know it's a male specific disease.
Yeah.
So your prostate should be between 2 and 4. The readings should juggle between, depending on your age, but between 2 and 4.
2 and 4 PSA. Yeah.
As PSA, so nanograms per milliliters is how they actually say it. Yeah.
I see. Good. Yeah.
So between 2 and 4. Mine was 509.
Oh dear.
So you know I was in dire trouble. So with that now, I needed to really find something that was going to work for me.
Yeah.
And as I said, my wife found a clinical trial,
Of course.
the Stampede.
Yeah.
I got onto that, and the medication was at the time 4 tablets a day. And over a 6-month period, I saw that this particular medication worked for me.
Fantastic.
Okay, it was a medication that was funded and researched by Cancer Research UK, and it was what they called a wonder drug at the time.
Okay.
And
I do have some questions. Maybe I ask them now, actually.
yeah, please.
I wanted to quickly go back to the PSA, so prostate specific antigen.
Antigen.
Yes. If you're a man, normally the readings would be 2 to 4, and it's read
Depending on your age.
depending on age, and it's read in nanograms. Did you say?
Nanograms per milliliters.
Per milliliters.
So basically, it could be 2 nanograms stroke milliliters.
Right, but yours was 509. What does cancer do to increase that reading? What does it do? I mean, can you describe in any detail is it just the mere fact that cancer has got to that place, that's why the readings increase? Are you with me?
Well, mine was advanced. So that means it had spread outside of my prostate area to other regions.
Right,
okay?
right, yes.
Mine had spread to 6 locations. 6 lower rib,
Yeah.
left elbow, lower back, right elbow, base of my lungs, and the base of my skull.
Right.
Okay, that's where it had spread to.
It spread to. Okay.
So basically, it had escaped the prostate. Once it gets outside of the prostate, that becomes metastasized.
Interesting.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's when you are in real trouble.
Okay.
Right? And this is why they say catch it early.
Yeah.
Because if they can catch it early, they can cure it.
Okay.
But once it goes outside the prostate, there is no operation that they can do that can help you.
Right, okay.
So
Yeah, so going back to the clinical trials now, you start the clinical trials, and how did you go about it? Do you have to sign up to something?
yes, you sign up and you sign multi pages.
Imagine, yeah.
But basically, you sign up to agree to be part of this trial, and it was a new medication, and it really was something that it was a gamble.
Of course, because there's so many risks involved naturally.
Yep, there's a gamble. But also, unbeknown to me, there were side effects that I really didn't envisage. Okay? But the point was, it saved my life.
Of course.
Okay? Over a 6-month period,
Yeah.
I saw my PSA reduce from 509 to less than 0.1.
That's amazing.
So that gives you an idea. But it wasn't without issues,
Okay.
side effects.
Yes, just quickly then. So you were taking the 4 tablets per day consistently?
Yep.
Had you changed your diet?
I had to change my diet. I came off of red meat.
Right.
I started to eat much more healthily.
Yeah, yeah.
I started to exercise, I tried to exercise, but I couldn't.
Because of your pain?
Because
or
of the pain.
difficulty?
Because of the pain.
Yeah.
And really, the fit guy that I was, you had to see that it was sad. I was shuffling around like a 100-year-old man or 90-year-old man. I literally, going from being able to run a number of miles, I couldn't even walk 10 yards.
God, I'm so sorry to hear that.
And it really was bad.
There's a huge emotional turmoil that you're going through, whilst hopefully embarking on a journey to cure yourself, but it's just the difficulty. How do you kind of navigate that? How did you do it?
Well, if I'm being honest, a lot of it was through the help of my wife.
Yeah.
She saw everything that went on a daily basis. You know, the children had obviously flown the nest, so to speak. So it was just her and I there. So on a daily basis, she saw everything. She saw the pain I was in. She saw when I collapsed. She saw everything, emotional, the upsets, the going from that man that she could rely on to that man that was bedridden, who couldn't move left or right. And it wasn't good. It just wasn't good. Not only for her, but also for my own mental state.
Health. Yeah. I was going to ask, obviously you've changed your diet, you stopped eating red meat. Was that a prerequisite of the clinical trials?
No.
Or was that your own decision?
That was my own decision.
Excellent. And also, I can imagine you had to also change your mindset around how you looked at life.
Of course you did.
Talk to me about, you know, what you did to change that mindset, to come to a better place of maybe almost thinking that, you know, there might be something that you could do to aid your healing.
Well,
if that's what you were thinking.
Okay, so a couple of things I did was this. I realized that I'd heard so many things from people. Oh, do this, do that, add this to your diet, take this, do this, all sorts of things which confuse the whole situation. So I kind of threw that to one side and then remembered something that my father had taught me. Some old ways, some old remedies from the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And I then started to look at those as being alternatives or not alternatives, but to assist me. I'm talking about Noonie, talking about Guinea hen weed, okay? These are names that would be familiar to you. These were, my father used to throw these things at me when I was a youngster, and I used to go, ooh, yeah.
What's that?
What's that? Oh, no.
And the bitters as well, yes.
And the bitters, right?
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, wow, here I am, all these years later, and it's there. So straight away I reached out for it, because what that was going to do and did was to help my immune system.
Absolutely.
And that was the key. I had to find something that helped my immune system to fight off what was going on, but also aid the recovery.
Yes.
Okay? And believe me, it did.
Good.
And I firmly believe that by doing that, I was able to recover far quicker. Okay? And my situation right now is that my cancer is being managed very well. I am one of the longest survivors on this particular clinical trial. And with that, it goes without saying that without, Cancer Research UK funding clinical trials like this, I wouldn't be here.
Right.
But it also goes without saying that black men need to understand that clinical trials are important. They are a part of what will keep us alive. Doesn't necessarily mean cancer. It can mean an array of other medical conditions. We have to make ourselves available for clinical trials so that they can see that these medications work for the black community.
Indeed. I think I've got to be careful how I say this, because I don't want to give the wrong message out to whoever might view this interview or conversation, but I think it's the suspicion around medical trials that have happened across the world. I won't name them, but we know where there's been deceit and lies, and we've been used, people from the African Caribbean community have been used as almost guinea pigs. So I think it almost runs in the DNA of generations that you don't go near these things, because it could be more damaging than it can be. If it, it can be more damaging than it would be in terms of help. So what advice would you give to somebody around how clinical trials have helped you?
Well, what I would say is, obviously, I'm living proof that it's worked for me, okay? But what I would add to that is that patients now are key to the world of medication, okay? And when I say that, I mean health professionals and patients are now working much more together. In that equation comes pharmaceuticals. Now, the pharmaceuticals are probably the ones that we least trust, okay? But because of what has gone on in the past, okay? And with that, there has been so much about where they make so much money off of us.
Commercial operations,
exactly, etc., etc. But the thing is we all have a part to play. And what you're seeing now is much more PPI, which is public patient involvement.
Right,
okay, happening. There are so many organizations now, I mean, I won't reel them off, but there are a number of organizations out there that are getting to the bottom of what has gone on in the past. They are working with the black community. There are black community organizations out there that are run by professional healthcare people, whether they be doctors, whether they be professors. The point is, they are there, they are trusted, they are to be trusted, more so. But a lot of the big boys now have realized that they've got to get their act together, and they're doing it.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
I've been a part of it. I've seen the changes, and I'm continuing to see changes.
Of course.
But maybe not fast enough.
Okay?
The only thing is, in 2022, we are seeing that patients, public, are not just people who just sit there and take it. We are different. Okay? We do not take anything you just say to us anymore. Okay? And our engagement with healthcare professionals and pharma, being pharmaceutical, has changed. And we are now an integral part of the clinical trial process, the research process, and with that, there are a lot of black doctors, professors, etc., getting involved and making people understand, look, it's to your benefit, your children's benefit, and to your grandchildren's benefit that you be involved in clinical trials.
Absolutely. I mean, what you mentioned at the very start of this conversation was that 1 in 4 black men suffer from prostate cancer versus counterparts.
Well, no, not suffer. May get prostate cancer in their lifetime.
Right, so they're more susceptible.
Correct.
And why are they more susceptible?
They don't know.
We don't
this
know
is
yet.
what
So
the
still
research.
part of the recent development. Okay, versus counterparts in our Caucasian community 1 in 8, and then in our Asian community 1 in 13. So presumably the research is about trying to find out why different ethnicities are more susceptible to prostate cancer than others.
Exactly.
But the figures are quite damning because we already know, like we've discussed, black men are less likely to want to go on to reach clinical trials, and maybe less likely to go to the doctor at the early stages.
Well,
so by the time they've gone, it's spread potentially.
Well, I can tell you this now, having spoken to a number of healthcare professionals at doctor level, that they have said to me, we are seeing too many black men coming to us at a later stage of diagnosis. Once you see that, you know that that means it can't be cured.
Absolutely. A couple of questions. You said some things I wasn't sure of. Are you now cancer-free?
No.
Okay. So it's been 10 years.
Yep.
And your cancer is being managed.
Managed well.
Managed well. And are you still on medication?
Yes, I am.
So you're still part of the clinical trials?
No. What I did is, now this is where things got a little bit, well, not complicated.
Yeah.
Clinical trials are rigorous in the way they are managed. And what I found was that I was having to be there every week. Okay? That didn't leave me any scope to turn around and earn money, to be out there being a part of
society. Yeah, absolutely.
And it got to the point where it really got on top of me. I couldn't do the work I did before, but I could still be a manager.
Yes.
I can manage men. I can manage a situation and not actually have to be physically...
And deliver training, maybe.
Okay, and deliver training.
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But the clinical trials were really messing me up. They were a priority, obviously. But what happened was that I got to the point where I said, enough is enough.
Yeah.
Sat down with my doctor, because with a clinical trial, you can choose if you want to stay on the trial or come off at any stage. So basically I told him, can you not change the frequency of my appointments to every 2 weeks? That would help me out.
Yeah.
Oh no, this and I said, no, really? So I said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'm coming off. And I was told plain and straight there and then, if you come off the trials, you will die. And I said to them, as I'm looking at you dead on now, I said to them, I'm already dying.
Bless you.
So tell me something new. Tell me something that's really gonna make me, shiver up and go, ooh, because what you're saying is not gonna work. With that, they went off and they got me transferred off of the clinical trial onto the NHS version of what was going on. So that way now, I'm no longer on the clinical trial. I'm still getting my medication. I'm now part of the NHS, and basically that meant I was freer to go and try and earn some money to support the family.
Because the NHS allowed fortnightly kind of doses. Is that what you're saying?
Basically what I'm trying to say to you is that the criteria is different than that for the clinical trial. Clinical trial is in favour of the pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Okay, so I moved away from all of that, came to the NHS side of things, and simply I was freer to participate in life.
Indeed. Alfred, tell me about the actual kind of maybe the format and the procedure of the clinical trials. Are you under a consultant? Do you have to attend hospitals? Tell me kind of what you had to do in order to qualify and make it happen.
Well, basically, I sat with a consultant. I signed up all the relevant papers, and throughout all my appointments, I was seen by a consultant. Okay. Sometimes it would be a junior consultant, but nonetheless a consultant.
Yeah.
I was also seen by a nurse.
Yeah.
Okay. A trials nurse, a clinical trials nurse. So there were a number of people that were a part of the process that I was going through.
Of course.
So I wasn't on my own, but there were times that you felt you were on your own.
Yeah.
Okay. So with that now, these people would see me. I would go get my PSA done, get my bloods done early in the day. In the afternoon, come back. So it really was spent a day at the hospital. You know, it didn't make sense going back home because we had the appointment in the afternoon. So we'd probably stay there, have some lunch, go back, get the results. Once you get the results, then you get your medication. So that meant you then went from one room to another part of the hospital.
Yeah.
So it was the process was a day process. It really was.
I was going to talk about how time consuming it was.
It was.
And you know, in hindsight now, obviously I accept that you're currently not on clinical trials, but you get your medication via the NHS. Do you feel that you were treated appropriately and fairly, and they looked after you to the best of their ability, of course? And do you think they could have done things better?
Yes, I think that's the best way. How you put it is the best way.
Right.
Could have done things better, but yes.
And I can imagine that now it's 10 years on, they've probably improved anyway.
Indeed.
But I think what we're saying here is that prostate cancer is real. It affects 1 in 4 men from the African Caribbean community, and there are clinical trials available, and we need to really get involved somehow so we better understand why we are so susceptible, and also to see what medication we can
that really works for us.
How do you feel on a daily basis? Talk to me about that.
Well, on a daily basis, up and down. There are side effects, as I say.
Yeah.
There are times I'll be walking along and I lose control of maybe my leg. Wow. So, you know, you kind of get a dead leg and you kind of drop it, something like that. Yeah. That is something that happens frequently. And then there's obviously, the pain that comes sometimes. Sometimes I'm in the bed and I'll scream out in pain. And the wife's sitting there thinking, what's wrong? But she's got used to it now that there is just certain things that happen. And we're not sure with the side effects, getting older, I don't know. But whatever, the point is these are regular things that have been happening. Okay. And when I talk to the doctors about it, it's noted and they keep an eye on it. My pain relief is monitored.
Yeah, so
my pain relief is monitored on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm on medication for that. So I'm on morphine for that.
Wow.
So on a daily basis, I'm taking about 14 tablets a day. But it's keeping me alive.
It is. Also, I want to know, have you tried any alternative medication? Herbalists, ancient things that they do in some countries that really believe in the kind of the cultural kind of healing and meditation, anything like that?
No, I wouldn't say that's what I've done.
Yeah.
What I would say is I answered earlier about Noonie, Guinean weed. These are things that are part of my daily routine.
Yeah.
And they work for me. And basically, that's to the extent that I've taken it.
Okay.
To go any further, I think personally, you're putting yourself at risk. One of the things that I have to be careful of, though, is the interaction of other medication or non-medication with what I'm on. And it's already happened where a particular type of medication that I was on clashed with something that I thought would work for me. And this is something I physically did. So I saw something online and I thought, yeah, let me do that. Not realizing that my pH level is, it's a terminology for the, in the medical world, for that's something that's going on in my body, is already been counted for, is being counted for in the medication. But I tried something which involved baking soda and something else.
Interesting.
And I took it.
Yeah.
And I was doing this for a few days. And I was walking around like I was spaced out.
Like a zombie.
And I told the doctor what I'd done. He said, that's why. And I realized then, he said, no, you can't do that. And I just realized, I thought to myself, you know something, you've got to be careful with what you're doing.
Absolutely.
You know, you're trying to help yourself, but equally, you've got to be careful.
You can't just randomly go on the internet and just say, oh, that might work for me.
No, it doesn't go like that.
Yeah.
And anybody who's doing that, I would say to you that please be careful
of course.
What you do.
Absolutely.
I know you want to live. We all want to live. But be careful what you do. What you read, what you do. You've got to be careful.
Of course. So what is your diet like today then?
Well, my diet still consists of rice and peas.
We need to eat right.
Well,
and enjoy life.
I've got to.
Yes.
But equally, yam, sweet potato, some of these things. Plantain.
I'm African, we say plantain.
Plantain.
You do say plantain?
Plantain.
Yeah, the difference. All the same.
You probably say better than we do, actually. But these are things that are more don't get me wrong, growing up, it was part of my day. Saturday was soup day, and in your soup were all the ingredients, all the foods that I just mentioned. So I grew up on it.
Of course.
But you do kind of slip on it. Scotch bonnet. Oh, listen, when that burns you and tears out everything, you're sweating.
It's some healing though, isn't it?
But it does. It does. It does. And these are the things that the health professionals out there need to get to grips with and understand about our culture and the things that work for us.
Yeah.
Okay? I've seen, in numerous training environments where potential recruits that have come in and their physical stature, the way their legs are such that you think you're a bandyfoot so-and-so. You don't stand strong.
Yeah.
What have you been eating? And you know that their culture now is McDonald's, KFC, things like that. In our day, we didn't have that. But what we did have was yam, chocho, right? And all these other foods that built us up.
Yeah.
And I do firmly believe that, if you look after your body will look after you.
I believe that.
And that's what it's about.
And there's also a culture, which is a very sad culture, as far as I'm concerned, of the excessive and abuse of smoking cannabis.
Yeah.
Of course, we know that in kind of managed situations, cannabis can be quite healing, and we're seeing a lot of the kind of medicinal cannabis being researched via the pharma companies. But there is abuse of people starting to smoke cannabis at as young as 8, 9, and continue to smoke cannabis into their 50s, and it has an effect on them because it's too excessive.
Yeah.
You know, and I know a couple of men who have been diagnosed with prostate cancer who are very, very, very heavy smokers, both cigarettes and cannabis. And I mean, the point I'm making is that I think if we are susceptible to something, and it might be our diet, it's also about other things that we consume, you know, and we just don't know what contributes to what, you know. And I think that these are the conversations that I think as a community we need to be honest about some of the things that have become part of our culture, which is actually quite detrimental for our culture.
Yep.
And not everybody wants to have the conversation because you might be offending a large group of people who've become accustomed to a way of life. And somebody might watch this and be offended by what I'm saying, even though it's true, but it is what it is. So you are a survivor amongst survivors, you've got your t-shirt on, you're a patient advocate. Tell me about some of the things that you do in that role.
Well, basically, I've been an ambassador with Cancer Research UK now for close on 8 years.
Right.
So I've represented not only them, but I've also represented my community. And I've sat on different clinical groups.
Yes.
I've given my story to different people. I've given my my understanding of what's going on to these groups in group discussions, so that they understand what I've gone through, but also what's going on in our community.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm an author.
Yes,
I've written 2 books. First book was Invincibility in the Face of Prostate Cancer.
Excellent.
Coming out the other side. Bit of a long title, but it tells the story. And the second book was called Motivated to Inspire.
Wow.
Okay. So I've written those 2 books there, and they're there, sitting there doing whatever they're doing.
Where can I find the copy? Amazon?
They are on Amazon.
Yeah.
They're on all good bookstores, so you can always find it there.
Yeah.
And I'm also I've script written a documentary, which was done last year, A Survivor Amongst Survivors.
Brilliant.
And basically that's where this all stems from.
Yes.
And simply it's 2 1-hour programs, and it simply looks at my journey in the first program.
Yeah.
In the second program, it's more around the medical healthcare people that are in our society who are able to answer questions in relation to prostate cancer. But also there is a carer on there whose husband unfortunately succumbed to prostate cancer. But she talks about her journey, the things that she went through. And so you get a perspective, quite an all-round perspective of prostate cancer as such. So basically, we did that last year. That went out on a Sky channel.
Oh.
So that's there. It's on YouTube.
Yeah.
So A Survivor Amongst Survivors.
Yeah.
And basically, you know, those are a couple of things I've done. And I continue to be a voice that brings hope, inspiration to people out there.
Thank you.
I talk at different functions,
Yes.
you know, right through to things at Parliament, things with Cancer Research UK, things with Parexel, which is one of the biopharma companies, things with the Urology Foundation. There are a number of groups, cancer stakeholders I regularly work with, and get my information out there. Get my story out there.
Get your story out there.
But equally, I engage with men in our community. But I also engage with any other men.
Of course, absolutely. Yeah.
Because it's about humanity.
That's right.
Okay? And that's key to me. So, you know, I'll put my stuff up on LinkedIn, or I can put it up on Facebook, and there's an interaction because people think, wow, he's made 10 years. Wow, I'm 5 years. Any tips? Any this? Any that? Or there are those who've just been diagnosed, and you can see that they're screaming out for help.
That's right. To provide that support and guidance, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But one of the biggest problems on the internet I find is that the different groups that are available, prostate cancer survivors, advanced prostate cancer survivors, there are these groups, they're good, but you've got to be careful. And it's about who is managing that group that makes it worth staying or going.
Indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I've heard people on there in the early days, somebody professed to be a doctor. And I sat there thinking, you're telling people you're a doctor. How the hell do they know if you really are a doctor? You're now going to give advice to people who are clutching at the very words that you've said as being gospel.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized there's a big problem here. You know, and some of the other organizations, I know Cancer Research UK, monitor what's going on. So when you go into the chat rooms, whatever, there's a moderator there.
That's right.
It's moderated, you know, between between 7 and 7, something like that. But nonetheless, it's moderated, and you can get questions answered by a professional. Okay, when you go off into some of these other places, you don't know what you're doing.
Absolutely. So it was World Cancer Day, I believe, on Friday.
Correct. Yep.
And I know you was on the Eddie Lester show recently.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes. How did that go?
It was great. It was fun. You know, Eddie's a character.
He is indeed.
He's a character. But the thing is, Eddie's been through something to do. Has had a bit of a cancer journey himself. I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying this.
Yeah.
But he understands a little bit about what it is. So that's always good to be able to talk to somebody who's been there. So it was great to talk to him. Excellent. And then I managed to squeeze the wife in too. So he had a conversation with her separately later on. And it was great.
Good.
Because it then gave the perspective of not only a cancer patient, but what's missing is the carer's story.
That's right. That's right.
And it's missing too often out there. And all these big organizations must start to get to grips with the fact that the carer is important.
Of course. Well, there's a seat beside you if you want to. How do you feel? No, not today. Okay. We could have. Right. So you've done loads of work in the UK as a patient advocate, a survivor amongst survivors. And, you know, just thank you for doing what you do while still managing your cancer. And, you know, there's times where I have a flu or a cold and I'm sort of in bed and you know, I almost feel that the world's against me, but I can't imagine what it feels like to actually have a diagnosis of something like cancer and what it actually does to you emotionally and psychologically, and being able to then get up every single day and still make a difference for other people. So I just want to say a big thank you from on the sofa.
So thank you.
And I'm sure that anybody that watches this is going to feel exactly the same about people like you, who actually are the real leaders of our society, of our community, that really want to make a difference, and they're not letting anything stop them. So
it's about never giving up, never giving in.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt, it's all of those things. You know, I reflect back and I think about what you said about laying in bed, you got flu. But I also reflect back to times when I've laid there and the pain has hit me. And my wife is next to me. And I remember when that pain really took me and made me rise out of the bed.
Wow.
And I'll never forget it, is that I just managed to see her face. And she looked and there were tears, but because there's nothing she could do. And this is why I say it's important to understand what the carers are also going through.
That's right. That's right. Well, you know, anytime your wife is ready to bless the sofa, she's always welcome, and I'm sure that one day she may decide to do that
Thank you so
when the time
much.
is right.
It's been a pleasure.
What's next for you then?
What next for me? Well, a new book.
Excellent.
10 Years to Survivor, I think it'll probably be called, or something along those lines. So I want to write that. Probably more engagement with the cancer stakeholders that are out there.
Yeah.
I'm a member of Cancer Research UK.
Good.
That means I'm somewhat of a shareholder as such. So therefore it means I'm very much involved in what they do, what they get up to, the fact that they come to us and ask for our opinions and get us around the table. We do a lot of round table discussions. And with that, because of what we say, it directs them into a certain path of how they deal with and interact with patients, the public, etc., etc. So that's been great. But also, I want to do something with the youth.
Yeah.
We got big problems out there, and I just don't think that we're dealing with it right. So I want to get involved more with the youth, the young people, and just really give them an understanding of what it's like out there, really, like what it is like to really grow up. You see, they think we weren't born yesterday.
Yeah, they think adults are just born as adults. Well,
Exactly.
they don't know. They don't think that. They know that. But it's almost, I think what happens is, you know, adults, we grow up, we become more sensible, we become more kind and friendly, and they just think we're idiots. That's what I think it is. They think we've all been there. We've all, you know, had that level of I'm better than everybody else. We've all been there. But one thing I say is that a child is a child and an adult is an adult. Adults have experience. You have more experience than me. You've been on earth longer than me. So there's always things to learn. And I think the only thing I would say to youth is don't write adults off, because there's things to learn from them, which you could use in 10, 15 and 20 years time. So that's what I say. But you were saying you want to work with them.
Yeah, no, work with them and just make them understand that, look, hey, I've been there, but equally listen to them. That's the key. Listen to them,
yes.
Right? And just say, okay, I hear your perspective, point of view, but listen to me.
Absolutely.
And this and this and that, and just say, look, there's another way you can go, okay? When you've got to reinvent yourself, you will understand.
Of course.
You've got so far in life, you've done this, you've done that. All of a sudden, that's finished. What am I going to do next? Am I just going to lay down on the sofa and just give up? No. So I had to reinvent myself.
Was that a pun there as well?
It was.
I like it.
So, you know, it's all of these things, you know, because a cancer journey is an experience like none other. When you realise that it takes you to a level that you really sometimes don't want to talk about. And I'm talking about potentially suicide.
Yeah.
I've been there. I know what it was all about.
Gosh.
And to overcome that, to reinvent, to become something else, to become somebody else, to you know, to win awards for the work that you've done.
Absolutely.
It then says to you, wow, look at that. I was at death's door.
Yeah. And now you're adding value and making a difference in other people's lives. Absolutely.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Right. Well, you've given us so much, and I know we've been talking for about an hour maybe. I just want to say again, I've said thank you again before, but let me say it again, thank you so much for coming, for giving your story, sharing your story, and for doing what you do, because it really means a lot to me, and especially because I am a politician, and you know, you hear a lot of negative things out there that come to your door as a politician, and when I meet people like you making a difference to the world, you think, oh, Bless you. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Two things now. Any further work you do, you know, hopefully Honor Stuff will be around for a very long time.
Yep.
And I can't wait to be recognised as the UK Oprah Winfrey. So I need to work hard on that. So by all means, when the time is right, you'll come and tell us the new story that you might have in 5, 2 years' time, whatever it might be.
Yep.
So please, let's keep in touch.
Yep.
And the second thing is, I do have some last personality questions for you.
Sure.
Bit of fun at the end of the interview, if you don't mind.
Yep.
The first one is, you're in a work meeting and your manager continues to undermine you in front of your clients. You've worked really hard to build up this clientele, and it's really important that they see that you're not a pushover, because your credibility is important to them. Do you ignore your manager and just say nothing to avoid conflict whilst in the meeting? Do you put the meeting on a 5-minute hold to go outside and have a quick chat with your manager about the behaviour and tell her or he to cease? Or do you consistently, there and then, in the meeting, in the presence of your clients, just tackle your manager and keep telling her to stop what she's doing so that your clients don't think you're a pushover?
I think it's got to be the second.
Yes, go outside.
Exactly.
And have a decent professional chat.
Diplomatically done.
That's a good answer. When it comes to dating,
What's that?
not that you will be on a date, or let's say when it comes to let's say when it comes to having a good, healthy marriage where there's understanding, compassion, communication, and love. Do you think it's important that two people must be compatible in terms of their values and moral compass?
I would say yes, but I would add to that friendship
Yes.
is key.
Yes.
Right? I know with my wife and I, we were friends before we were lovers. And that is what has kept us in good stead. But yeah, I think that's the way to answer that one.
A bit of a follow-up on that then, a supplementary question, which I don't always do, but because you've introduced the word friendship, I want to say there would have been behaviours and values that made you become friends in the first place. And those behaviours and values must have been aligned. Are you with me? So I think we're saying the same thing. The values and the moral compass, there must be some similarities for two people to want to be in each other's company and to obviously embark on a relationship, a friendship, a marriage, and etc. Yeah? Good. Right, if you, Alfred, had all the money in the world, like money is not an issue, what would you do with it and why?
You know something? The first thought that comes to my mind is this. I'd give it away.
Give it away.
You know the reason why I'd give it away? I've seen what money does. I've worked with so many of the big stars. I've seen what it really does. But more importantly, my wife put me in my place the other day. She said to me, I was saying about, why can't we win the lottery or something like that? And she said simply this. She said, you know something? You've won the lottery. Your life, right? Your life has been saved. So money, it ain't all that. And when I recall what she said, I really had to sit back and go, whoa. It's funny how you forget things when things are really going well.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Of
and I
course.
just think, money, what's money? When you've gone through what I've gone through, money don't mean nothing.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. That's a really good answer. And it's more of a kind of, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but it's almost like a realisation, isn't it, about life, and realising that what's more important is my health, my mindset. Money's less important.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for coming to visit us.
Very
We really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks.